Okay, welcome everyone to the new season of the Genre Storytelling Series by the Storytelling Association of California. We had a successful year last year, and we're starting over with personal stories that we did last August. And we have we'll have 6 new tellers tonight from different swap groups around California, and thank all of you for attending. Our first teller is Mindy Donner, and she is from the Storytellers of San Diego. And I've had the pleasure of hearing her tell stories at different events. Last year, we paired our Northern California group with their story swap group, and had some, for Celebration, has some fantastic stories, and Mindy's was one of them. She's an arts educator and a storyteller and a puppeteer, and her puppetry work is just fantastic. So please welcome Mindy Donner.
Thank you,
Ed. Oh, shoot. One moment, please. Let me just remove. There we go. Hi, Mindy. Thank you for your patience.
Andy. I needed a job, plain and simple, and so I did what I've always done, and I still do. I broadcasted that near and far, loud and clear, and often I would quip, well, I will accept any job that isn't deemed illegal or morally reprehensible. That someone who heard was a friend of a friend, an acquaintance of mine. Katie was a member of a large, rollicking Irish-American family who owned and operated an Irish pub and grill. San Francisco financial district. Heeding Katie's advice, I came in to accept the job, get a look at the place, and see Marie, the career waitress, for whom I'd be substituting for a couple weeks, see her in action. Now, I don't know about you, but when I hear the words Irish pub, that image conjures in my mind to be a wooden bar, reflecting, highly polished, long, that seems to go on forever and ever. And then there'd be a raft of booths on the other side against the wall, all appointed in vintage leather, slightly aromatic. O'Harrell's did not disappoint. Then I peered into the lunchroom. Oh. The sun was glaring in. It appeared hot, and there were white formica tables all pushed together, one after another, as in picnic style, completely devoid of charm. And there was Marie. She appeared ageless, although I knew she was older than I. And she was deftly handling plates, taking orders, ministering to her very loyal clientele. She was short, attractive, had a salt of the air quality about her, with slightly bleached blonde hair. I liked her. When I looked at the clientele, that was another story. I got queasy in my stomach. They were burly men, construction workers. I don't know if they were tall or short or wide or narrow. They were burly men. But then the smell of the Chinese lunch special wafted in the air. Oh, I would like this place. I came the next day, my maiden voyage, and I was clutching my pen and my order pad, and I stepped into the lunchroom. All grew conspicuously quiet. Then there was a synchrony of movement. There was the craning of necks. And then the crossing of arms, until I felt as if there were an indomitable castle being built in front of me, and I was outside swimming in the moat. I had flutters in my stomach. They dropped down into my knees. I could take orders. I could do this. Then there was the inevitable chorus of, where's Marie? Yeah, where's Marie? Where's Marie? Huh. I'm Mindy. I'm substituting for Marie for the next couple of weeks while she's on vacation. Dead silence. I could take orders. I walked up to my first customer, and these first few orders were like mini lectures. Yes, I understand. The meat should not touch the potatoes. Yes. And the peas should never touch the meat. I understand. And the peas should never touch anything. Yes, I got that. And never should there be any onions on the plate, ever, even for the hamburger lunch special. Yes. And I put up my first few orders and I caught sight of the cook. I will never forget his white crew cut. If I thought the clientele were challenging, they had nothing on the cook. He glared out at me, squinting, and grunted and grumbled something. I have no idea what he said. Well, I returned in a few minutes and to see if any of my orders were up. And well, I looked for the ordering slip under the plates. I didn't see any. Oh, that must be my order. And I reached out my hands and I was about to grab the plates. Another waitress grabbed them and went off. Oh, this couldn't be. Oh, that must be my order. I'm sure of it. And I reached out my hands again and the same thing happened. And this continued on till the end of the shift. I was fighting back tears. And the next few days weren't much different. Where was Marie? I resolved to speak to Katie. She met me after my shift. Katie, this place is not like any other place where I've worked before, and I have a quick fix how to get the order synchronized with the plates and the slips. She looked at me without a trace of a smile. You're right. This isn't like any other place. O'Harrell's has been in business here for over 30 years. This is the way we do it. You must fit yourself to it, to us. I needed this job. The rent was coming due. I repeated that like a mantra for the rest of the 2 weeks. Miraculously, I got a little faster every day, just a little faster. And I began to realize that O'Harrell's was much more than a lunch place for these men. It was the physical container which held the spiritual and fraternal bonds of these men forged at their workplace and then at lunch. They shared their hopes and joys, sorrows, frustrations. And I brought the sustenance on plates with a smile. Now, on my last day, one of the more affable men paid me a compliment. You did a good job. I can see you were trying. And some of the other men gave me half begrudging smiles, even the never onions man. I went back once to pick up my check and I saw Marie. She asked me how her clientele had treated me. Fine, Marie. Thank you. I needed this experience. Thank you. That's the story of Where's Marie?
That was delightful. Thank you for that.
Very nice. You can imagine that some of you in the listening audience can relate to the waitressing or waiter experience. I know I can relate to it as a construction worker and coming in and you're in a hurry and it's a bonding experience, like you said. And when new people come in, you just want it right, but we can tolerate people that are trying to learn, and especially without getting any training. I can sympathize with that. Okay, so our next storyteller is Linda Kennedy. And I like to say that Linda is a good friend of mine. We have performed together at different times. She is a member of the Foothills Storytelling Group, who she's representing. She's also a member of the group I belong to, the Sacramento Storytelling Guild. And she's also a children's performer, and she's been telling stories since the 80s when she took a class with, some of you may remember him, Bob Jenkins at San Jose State University. It was a great 3-unit class. He was in the drama department. We've talked about it. We've learned a lot from that experience. Linda also is the MC of the open telling at the Sierra Storytelling Festival for the last 9 years and has made some great connections. And she's an amazing storyteller. And I am so looking forward to hearing probably maybe a new story from her or one of her great old stories. Welcome, Linda Kennedy. You're muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, good.
Yes, we can hear you now.
Okay, great. I'm going to start with a little poem. Many of you probably know it, my favorite Mary Oliver poem, Instructions for Living a Life. Pay attention. Be astonished. Tell about it. After 7 years of being a teaching assistant at the community college, I decided I wanted a room of my own, so I needed to get a credential. So it was the beginning of the spring semester of 1985, that I went back to school at the age of 44. And as it happened, the sociology class that I signed up for was one that I didn't need. So I ran down to the lecture hall. If you'll remember, back in those days, there was no such thing as online business. I had to have the instructor sign me off with the withdrawal card. So I got down there and he had already started the lecture. So I went to the back of the room and I sat down, got out my notebook, and I did some doodling, maybe made a grocery list, waiting for him to finish. But then he said something and he wrote it on the board and I went, whoa, I like that. I'm going to write it down. After the class, I had him sign my withdrawal card and I headed home. On the way home, I passed the Methodist church and I looked in the parking lot and I saw a lot of my friends there. And I said, uh-oh, I'm missing something. So I pulled in and I found a group of women standing around this table. And among them was Ruth Moser. Her husband was with the diplomatic corps and they'd just gotten back from Laos. And she was there visiting her mom, one of the women there in that group. Well, she was telling them about this woman, Justine Merrick, who's been going to peace conferences. And she wanted to come up with an idea where women across the country could work together in a peace effort. She had remembered that during the Irani hostage crisis, how we all were tying yellow ribbons around the trees and the poles, whatever. And she said, what we need to do is tie a ribbon around the Pentagon. It would take 1 mile of ribbon to do that. And so she came up with a plan where women could get a piece of fabric that was 3 feet long, 18 inches wide, and they could design a peace message. It was sent off where it was sewn end to end with other pieces. They said, and the piece of cloth was right there where these women were gathered. And they said, but we don't know what to write. And I said, wait a minute. I ran out to the car and I got my notebook. I said, this is what the teacher wrote on the board today. And it was a familiar, probably to many of you, a quote that said, peace will come when the power of love is greater than the love of power. Oh, they all loved it. Claudia said she could do that in calligraphy, and with liquid embroidery paint, she would do wildflowers across the bottom and put our name at the bottom. So she did that, and it got sent off. Away it went, and it was sewn here and there to other pieces. Well, it was August 5th when that ribbon was first displayed. It was not 1 mile long, ladies and gentlemen. It was 18 miles long. Women from all over the country sent them in by the hundreds, probably thousands. Helen and her sisters from California went to see the ribbon. And I got to see just a little photograph of it. I wish I'd been there. They said it was festive in a way, but because it was August 4th, 1985, it was the 40th anniversary of the bombing of Hiroshima. So rather it being a real, what we'd call, like more like a parade or a festival, it was more solemn, meditative, respectful. There was a special event at the National Cathedral. Pete Seeger was there singing peace signs. I wish I'd been there, but somewhere in that 18 miles of ribbon were the words that I had written down in a notebook in a class I went to drop out of. This could be the end of the story, but it isn't. I finished school. Yes, I took that class from Bob Jenkins, part of that education part, got my credential, and ended up in a 4th grade classroom in Gilroy. I taught there 5 years. And I decorated my classroom with all those positive posters. Never give up, be yourself. There's no I in the word team. They were all over the room. I was so proud to be a teacher at that school. Then sometime, and I don't know exactly when, but it was before July 1995, because that's when we moved from Gilroy to Nevada City. I was reading the Evening Dispatch, and there was a column there by one of my friends, Chuck, and the city manager had gone to Kiev in the USSR for some type of a conference. His host family belonged to the Youth Peace Committee. When they found out he was from Gilroy, they got all excited. And Mike Doran said, oh, yeah. Everybody knows about the Garlic Festival. And they go, no, come with us. And they went and they took him to a classroom in Kiev, a classroom maybe much like mine. And there on the wall, 3 feet long, it was a piece of cotton. And it said, there will be peace when the power of love is greater than the love of power, with wildflowers across the bottom, and the United Methodist Women of Gilroy, California. Instructions for life. Pay attention, be astonished, tell about it. Done. Thank you.
What a powerful message. Just the idea of just one thing that a teacher, we all know, many of us are teachers in this organization, and just how powerful people who teach can be. Just that one little sentence blossomed for you into an amazing experience.
Amazing, yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing that. And you also are involved with the Women's Empowerment Group in Sacramento, right? Can you explain?
Right. Yes, I do storytelling there. Every session is 9 weeks long. I've been going for 10 years. And we help the women. These are previously homeless women that are now being trained for employment. And we help the women identify and own their own story, their journey, and to enable them, hopefully empower them to be in charge of the next chapter in their life. Yeah, thank you.
Excellent. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay, well, our next storyteller, John Pedrick, and he is representing the Sacramento Storytelling Guild, and he's one of our new tellers. He's a new person in Davis, where I live. I'm in Mencham, He moved here in 2019 from a small farming community in South Dakota. And he just was really interested in getting involved in storytelling. I don't remember exactly where he heard about it, but we've encouraged him to tell stories, and the stories he's already told with our local group is just fantastic. So we have asked him to represent us here at the Genre Storytelling, and please welcome John Petrick.
Thank you, Ed. It's better to give than receive, right? That's what Mom always said. But that was pretty hard to swallow when you were 7 years old and waiting for Christmas. But as we age, as we seek relationships, seek love, maybe have some kids of our own, we begin to understand the joy of giving, the reward of making someone else happy. Well, over the years, I got better at that giving part, but receiving was still really hard. We all know the aunt or the neighbor who at the birthday party is so gracious, makes everyone feel so good about their gifts. Well, that was never me. Like most American males, I was raised to be strong and independent, never take nothing from nobody. And so our culture never taught me how to accept, how to receive, whether it be a gift or help or even love. When my wife and I were just starting to know each other, I almost destroyed that relationship by my selfish and ungrateful and probably even mean response to her first birthday gift to me. Luckily, we're still together 40 some years later. Well, with that background, I want to take you to a place long ago and far away, to the Czech Republic in March of 2019. I just finished a language course and I was going to ride my bike across most of the Czech Republic. I'd done some bike rides before and trained really hard, but this one was in March and I was still living in North Dakota at the time. And March in North Dakota, it was cold, windy, icy, and cold, and snowy. Well, let's just say I didn't get much training yet. Well, the first day of my trip, I took off from Brno, and it was a disaster. My out-of-shape body struggled all day going up these mountains, which make up much of the central Czech Republic. My cell phone died. But the worst thing, was that I used a website called hotels.cz. I got to my destination, no rooms. I booked another one in the next town, got out my tired butt on my bike, another 20 miles over the mountains, no rooms. Eventually it got dark and I got a cab to another town 10 or 15 miles off my route. Well, the next morning I woke up and my legs would barely move. I got on my bike and it was still uphill, even higher uphill. I actually went past 2 ski resorts. There was snow in the fields. There was sometimes even snow on the road. Well, one time I looked down at my odometer, I was going 5 miles an hour and I thought, how am I ever going to get 50 miles in today? But the beautiful thing about mountains is they do have a top. And at the end of the morning, I reached it and got 20 miles or so that was mostly downhill. But nonetheless, by the end of the day, 2 days of work on that out-of-shape body had taken its toll. And then right before my destination, I took a wrong turn and added another hour. I exhausted all my emotional, all my physical energy. And I found that my destination wasn't even a town. It was a series of hotels and resorts that went around this lake. Well, I rode in there and I noticed there wasn't anybody around. Got to my hotel. It was closed. It was the off season. Well, I'd seen this place back maybe a quarter mile or so, a sign for food. So I went back there and took off on a side street a couple blocks, and the place that was serving food was actually a hotel. And it was a big hotel. It was like 5 stories high. So I pulled on the door and it was locked. I saw the sign on the door, 6 o'clock. I looked at my watch, 6:02. I pounded on the door. This handsome guy, maybe 50, little balding, came and looked at me. I must have looked as pitiful as I felt because he cautiously let me in. Well, he didn't speak any English at all, and my Czech is still very poor, but I told him I needed a room. And he said, the hotel is not open. Only the restaurant's open during the off season. Well, I pointed out, maybe I begged. It's dark out there. I don't have anywhere to go. Well, he stared at me blankly. Then he called his boss, and his boss said he could give me a room. Gave me a key and told me, take a shower, come settle up when I close down the restaurant. So I came back out to the front desk, and he says it's 700 korun, about $35. I pull out my credit card and he says, no credit cards. We don't have internet during the off season. Cash. I only have 300. There's an ATM in town about 12 kilometers away. Nahora, I said. Uphill? Yes. Ne možu to delat. Čiliš unaveni. I can't do that. I'm too exhausted. He stared at me over the top of his glasses and told me to wait. Well, a few minutes later, he comes back out and waves me over, and we get in his car. It's the Czech equivalent of a 10-year-old Chevy, I guess. We drive to town and stop at the ATM. He stops at a little store for some cigarettes. I wanted to get out and get some food too, but he said, no, there's food at the hotel. Well, I didn't really want vending machine food, but I didn't have much choice. Well, as we drove back, I found out his name was Pavel. We got back to the hotel at probably 8, well past closing time, of course, and settled up my hotel bill. And then he took me into the dining room and he set me down at the bar and he served me a beer. And then he gave me a menu, told me to choose something, and I did, and then he left. And then 15, 20 minutes later, he came back with a full hot meal, sets it down, pours me another beer. I'm finally getting what's going on. Pavel, ste moc hudný. He looks at me strangely, and I realize I had just told him he was very skinny. Ne. Pavel, ste moc hudný. Pavel, you are very kind. Those stern gray blue eyes filled with tears. I think mine did too. So that's maybe when I learned that I could learn this receiving thing, that maybe mom was wrong. Maybe sometimes it is better to receive than to give. That sometimes you just have to accept and acknowledge true human kindness. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, John. Thanks for taking us to back in time and to Czechoslovakia. I've never been there. And the adage about giving, it's better to give than receive. That's one I heard a lot as a child also. And definitely like you as a boy growing up, that was kind of a mantra. So I'm sure many of us can relate to that, but receiving and learning how to do that graciously is so important. Okay, all right. So our next storyteller is Margaret Mitchell. She comes to us from Story Masters in the Los Angeles area. And that is a Toastmasters group that she's been a member of for 10 years. She's also had the good fortune of being taught by Barbara Clark, and who is an amazing storyteller. Many of you know who she is. She's had the opportunity to perform at Stories by the Sea, the Institute of Musical Arts, and other places, along with the Toastmasters, that definitely is an organization that perfects the art of storytelling. So I'm excited to hear for me the first time, Margaret Mitchell.
Thank you. Occasionally, when I'm not in too great a hurry to get to wherever I'm going, I take a quick detour and drive slowly through my old neighborhood. It's like traveling down memory lane. Once I saw a young man who looked so much like someone I had known from the past, I almost called out, "Benji, Benji." But no, it couldn't be Benji. In 1951, when I was 7 years old, my family moved from Riverside, California to Compton, California. Our new house sat in a tract of new homes at the far end of town. My parents said that the homes had been built especially for us Black folks to keep us from trying to integrate the rest of the town where all the white people lived. Well, that ploy worked. The modest 3-bedroom homes were sturdy and attractive. They had gleaming parquet wood floors and Formica countertops in the kitchen. For my family, that was a step up. I quickly came to love my new neighborhood. I made 3 best friends whose houses I was allowed to visit and who could visit mine. We played jacks on our front porches and jumped rope and played hopscotch in our yards. Sometimes we watched the boys play touch football in the middle of the street, and we cheered them on. Other times we played inside, pretending to be wives and mothers, preparing imaginary meals for our imaginary families, and comforting our baby dolls with, "Shh, baby, don't cry." Like my parents, most of the homeowners were originally from the South. They were from places like Louisiana or Mississippi, Oklahoma, Texas, or Arkansas. They were well acquainted with the Jim Crow laws, with lynchings and racial injustice. They also understood that just like the weather, California's brand of discrimination was mild compared to where they had come from. Most of the men were veterans of World War II. A few were professionals and entrepreneurs, but most worked blue-collar jobs that paid them enough to live out their dreams of providing a decent life for their families. Those men worked hard all week. Then on Saturdays, they washed their cars and they mowed their lawns and did the work around the house and all those honeydews. On Sundays, they put on their suits and they went to church with their families. The women worked even harder than the men, cleaning, cooking, and shopping, doing the laundry, and taking care of the children and their husbands, and sometimes even working outside the home. Every woman knew every other woman, and every other woman's children and every other family's business. Little by little, from a word dropped here or an observation made there, I came to understand two important things about the world I lived in. One, Black people were not treated the same as white people. And two, women were not treated the same as men. A Japanese family, the Matsumotos, lived in the corner house down the street from us. They were one of the few non-Black families in the neighborhood. Once, I said to my mother, "Mama, the Matsumotos are so lucky because they have light skin and don't get discriminated against like we do." She replied, "No, honey, that's not true. They've lived through just as much as we have, and maybe more." I was a grown woman before I finally understood that the Matsumoto family had been imprisoned in an internment camp during the war. People didn't talk about that much back then. We didn't even learn about it in school. I learned a lot from eavesdropping on my mother and her friends. "Girl, Jack jumped on Nadine again this weekend. Said she was giving him too much lip. Somebody called the police again, but they just told him to calm down and have a cigarette." "Ooh, girl, well, you know John Smith was all over Benji again." "Oh, Lord, the way he talks to that boy." I was about 12 years old when I paid any attention to Benji. Benji was a handsome young man, barely more than a boy, really. When I was 12, he was about 17 or 18. He had recently graduated from high school, and he walked past my house on his way to catch the bus to and from college. He was of average height and build and dressed impeccably. Carefully pressed slacks and shirt, spit shine leather shoes, and his entire ensemble pulled together with a carefully chosen tie and coordinating sweater or jacket. If you didn't know any better, you might have thought that he was a college professor and not just another freshman student. The leather briefcase he carried helped to strengthen that impression. Benji had a certain grandness about him. When he passed by, he would nod his head and say, "Hello, you pretty young lady." Although he didn't wear a hat, his grandiose manner made me feel like he had tipped an imaginary hat and made a little bow. It made me feel terribly grown up. A college man had paid attention to me. Benji was different from most of the boys in the neighborhood. He did not play football in the streets. He was bookish and a loner. His walk was more of a girly sachet than a manly swagger. I loved Benji for his differentness, for how polite and respectful he was to everyone, and how special he made me feel when he said grandly, "Hello, young lady." Benji's father did not appreciate his sterling qualities. I heard that their arguments were fierce. Mr. Smith would thunder, "What's wrong with you, boy?" And Benji would answer, "What's wrong with me? What's wrong with me?" Their arguments grew louder and more frequent in the weeks before the unthinkable happened. Early one Saturday morning, I awoke to see police cars parked in front of Benji's house. Quickly, the word spread throughout the neighborhood. Benji's father had shot him dead. He claimed that he heard noises late at night and that he shot into the darkness. The police took a report and listed Benji's killing as an accident. There was no investigation. Of course, people talked. Damn shame for a man to kill his own son like that. Yep, sure is a pity. He was a good kid too. But no one challenged Mr. Smith about his story or took their suspicions to the police. All these many years later, I wish that I'd had the courage to speak up back then. Today, I know that when you see a wrong, you must do whatever you can to make it right. You must say something. You must do something. To be silent is to be complicit. Occasionally, when I'm not in too great a hurry to get to wherever I'm going, I take a quick detour and drive slowly through my old neighborhood. If I'm lucky, the jacaranda trees will be in bloom, saluting the sky and carpeting the earth with their stunning lavender flowers. Inevitably, waves of nostalgia wash all over me. I remember my growing up time, the good times and the bad times, and all the times in between. The ghosts of yesterday reach out to embrace me, to remind me of the experiences that helped to mold me. I remember the hopeful families chasing the American dream. I remember a young wife whose husband beat her for speaking her truth. I remember a sweet, innocent family imprisoned for no fault of their own. And I remember a beautifully kind young man who yearned to grow into the fullness of himself. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you for sharing those powerful memories. Unfortunately, we're not taught enough of those real history moments in school. It is getting better. I know in my area, I think my daughter's getting a good education right now on what's really happening with our history and real human rights. Your experiences, I really like how you describe people. You just bring them to life. And the sentence where it's to be silent is to be complicit. That is so important. We've all got a voice. We need to share that. Thank you so much, Margaret. And please welcome our next storyteller, Rocky Ross.
Hello, are you going to intro me or should I just
I am
start?
ready for you to come on. Okay, so Rocky is the host of the R Boot storytelling.
Not the R boot, it's the reboot, storytelling reimagined.
Oh, I had the R Boot, the reboot. Okay. And that's down in Morro Bay. And for the Storytelling Association of California, Rocky is our story coach. And she's worked with Stories in Living Color. She's worked with me and other people in developing their stories. And she is a master wordsmith and an amazing coach. And she does this also for other people. So hopefully you can get in touch with her. She will have some of her information in chat. So please welcome Rocky Ross.
Thank you. The name of my story is called Wouldn't You? And I just want to get set up with my virtual screen there. Okay. My mom friends called me the baby whisperer because I just had a way with babies, and they would hand me their squalling infants and I would swaddle them and they would just calm down. I just had a way with it. I loved being a mom. My son Jesse, who I had given birth to 4 years prior, was now pestering me, begging me for a little brother or little sister. And his father and I had divorced by then, but I knew I had the capacity to to parent another child. I wanted to expand our family. And so I reached out to an adoption facilitator. And over time, she connected me with a young Black teenager, just 17 years old, who was in her 9th month. She wanted to place her baby for adoption, but she was keeping her pregnancy a secret from her own mother living at home. And this gave me pause because I believe in an open adoption. I wanted any child I adopt to grow up knowing his kin. And also because I didn't know the reason why she felt compelled to keep it a secret from her mother. But she was in need, and I said okay. She called me from the hospital the day he was born. I drove to San Diego and made a beeline to her room. She was distraught and disoriented, her eyes red from crying. She had asked for the baby to stay in the nursery because it was too difficult to have him in her room, and she asked me to go be with him in the nursery. The nurses knew what was going on, and they let me stay. I picked him up from his little crib. I sat down in a comfy chair nearby. I opened my shirt and rocked him against my skin so he would feel warm skin and a steady heartbeat, his first night independently on earth. And we stayed in the chair through the night into the morning. And then we went back to the room and we signed papers with the social worker, which would allow me to take him home from the hospital. The birth mom said she didn't know who the father was, and so there was no father's signature on the birth certificate. When I came home with our little baby, Jesse was so excited, jumping up and down. I want to hold him. I want to hold him. I propped a little pillow under Jesse's arm on the sofa so he could hold his new baby brother. And he said, "Mama, I promise I'm going to share my Pokemon cards with him. I promise." And I knew that he would. That night I sang to him and I rocked him on my chest, skin to skin. Because his mother didn't want her belly to show, she hadn't eaten much during her pregnancy. So he was a lean baby, not malnourished, but very thin. He had beautiful high cheekbones, very regal, and beautiful chocolate skin, and long tapered fingers that would move gracefully, reminded me of underwater seagrass. And babies take almost another month on the outside to complete the gestation. They're not fully present. And until they come into their own, their eyes are sort of glassy and glazed and they look through you. But every parent knows that day they give you that first real smile. It's just a beautiful day. Jesse had smiled on the 9th day. This little guy hadn't smiled yet, but we had time, and we knew it was coming. So I bathed him, I sang to him. Every day I bathed him gently. He really loved the warm water. He seemed to relax in the warm water and hold his arms out, floating like little wings. Day 14, I had just finished bathing him and wrapped him in a warm towel when the phone rang. I had him resting on my lap when I answered it. The facilitator's voice was shrill and panicked. She said the birth mother, in her postpartum despair, had broken down and revealed to her own mother, the baby's grandmother, what she had done, and given the phone number to the grandmother, and the grandmother had called the facilitator and said she wants the baby back. I sit in stunned silence. The facilitator starts ranting in my ear. Listen, I know a good attorney, and you can fight this case. You've got the resources. You can give him a better life. And she's going on and on. That was never my intention, to take a baby from a mother who wanted to parent him. She's going on and on about how I should fight this case when she realizes I haven't said anything. And then she stops and she says, okay, I'll give you some time to process this, but just so you know, I gave your phone number to the grandmother. And we hung up. And I rose with the baby and went and sat in the rocking chair and was rocking him skin to skin and giving him his bottle when the phone rang. It was Grandma, and she was crying. Please, Miss Ross, I had no idea my daughter was pregnant. I never would have let her do this had I known. Please, I want to raise my grandson. And Grandma tells me that she knows who the father is. He's a young seaman in the Navy, based out of San Diego. He was out to sea, but her daughter got word to him, and he was livid, and he was coming to LA to get me and get the baby as soon as his ship came into port. Imagine the emotional turmoil of the grandmother finding this out, and the mother's agony of regret. Imagine being able to turn back the hands of time and correct a mistake and give this young woman the chance of a do-over. Who among us wouldn't want that chance to take back a decision that we later regretted? Imagine being able to give that gift to another. Wouldn't you want that? Wouldn't you do that? I said to the grandma, it's okay, Grandma. It's okay. Tell the father to stand down. Tell the mother, tell your daughter to come get her son. Grandma stopped crying. She said they didn't have a car, but she would buy a Greyhound bus ticket for her daughter to come up, and I would meet her at the downtown LA bus station the next day. On our last night together, I sang to that beautiful boy, and I rocked him on my chest, skin to skin, and I whispered baby love stuff in his ear as he drank his milk, and I enjoyed his long, tapered fingers as they wavered gracefully like underwater seagrass. I had imagined raising a fabulous neurosurgeon or jazz pianist, but in that moment, I just enjoyed his beautiful hands. The next morning, I packed a baby bag full of diapers and clothing and everything a new mom could want, and I drove him to the Greyhound bus station and waited for her with him in my arms. She arrived distraught and disoriented, her eyes swollen from crying. We sat in two hard plastic chairs tightly together, with him on my lap, gazing up at the two of us. And I undid his little clothes to show her how to care for the remnants of the umbilical cord that had fallen off, and I shared with her everything I knew about his sleep patterns and his eating habits. And then I fitted her with the front baby carrier and put him snugly inside, and we hugged, and she turned in the direction of the rest of her life, and I turned toward mine. But I did turn around to steal one last glance, and it was just in time to see that little boy give his first smile to his mother. Thank you.
Ooh. Thank you. That's very touching. I need a minute here myself. It's so important to remind of the importance of just doing the right thing. And even though it's difficult, thank you for your story and doing the right thing for that family. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Whew. Okay. Hopefully I get on with to introduce the next storyteller. The next storyteller is Julie Orth, and she is from the Mother Lode Storytelling Guild in the Sierras. She is a Waldorf teacher, and if any of you know anything about the Waldorf schools, she's definitely a master of using puppets and singing and storytelling, integral part of the programs. So I am really looking forward to hearing Julie. I have not heard her tell before, so please welcome Julie Orth.
Thank you. I sat up from some red velvet cushions, surrounded in a cylinder with zebra striped wood and copper plates. And I felt the engine come to a stop, felt the brakes engage and the rocking slow. And I looked out the port windows out onto a sea of colored lights darting through the playa. Off in the distance, I could see the man. And beyond that, Black Rock City, the heart of Burning Man, a city of 80,000 people a year. So yes, I was at Burning Man. And speaking of burning, there was something burning off in the distance. Some piece of art. Every year, the artists come there and they teach us about letting go, how everything is temporary. They spend months or years building amazing pieces of art only to torch them. Many of them burn every year. And I wondered what it might be that was out there. And they were teaching us about letting go. And I was trying to let go. I was at Burning Man and I wanted to have fun and adventure, but I was having a hard time letting go of some stress and anxiety. I was feeling anxious because I'm a teacher and I was actually about to enter into 8th grade with my class, most of whom I'd had for 8 years. They came to me under a rainbow bridge onto a deck of the 1st grade classroom, and I had shepherded them along the way. And we were so excited to go into this last year together. And we had decided that we were going to build a kinetic sculpture to take up to the Kinetic Grand Championship up in Humboldt. It's a 3-day race that's more than 50 miles through land, sand, and water. And we wanted to build a Viking ship. And this ship would have a dragon-headed prow that would breathe fire. And it was really important that it breathed fire. This was a big plan. These were big kids. Some of them were bigger than me. But I didn't know how to make this dragon-headed prow. I didn't know anybody who could help me. Here I was at Burning Man, full of people who know how to do that kind of thing. But I live in a small town in the Sierras, and rigging up pipes to propane tanks and lighting things on fire is not something you want to learn via Zoom. You need a real life human being to teach you all of that. And so I was really hoping for some kind of miracle. And I had heard tales of miracle, playa magic, playa dippity, if you will. And I was really hoping something like that would happen. My favorite playa miracle story was about a young woman, and she had encountered the God phone. It's a phone booth somewhere on a corner in Black Rock City, and it says "Talk to God" on it. And you walk inside and you pick up the line, and God is on the other end, and you can have a conversation with God. And this young woman entered the phone booth and began to lament to the God on duty about her situation. This is her first burn. Here she is in the middle of a desert, and everything had fallen through with her campmates. She had no shelter, no sleeping bag, no tent, no food, no water. Everything had fallen through, and she didn't know what to do. So God kept her on the line, and he rallied his campmates, and they gathered everything she needed. And by the time she was done talking to God and hung up the phone, everything was outside the phone booth waiting for her. And I love to kind of picture that scene and how miraculous that would be for someone to experience that kind of giving and kindness from a stranger. But there's more to the story. Sometime later, months or years, I don't know, God was in New Orleans, and he was at some event talking in a circle with his friends. And he heard a voice behind him, a young woman who said, "I know that voice anywhere. You're God. You saved me when my campmates abandoned me." And so the best playa miracles are the ones that radiate out into what we call the default world, as that one did. So I was really hoping for a miracle. The hatch squeaked open, and my brother, dressed in his train conductor uniform, popped his head in and shouted, "Julie, you need to come meet these people." So I climbed out of the Lady Whiskey, AKA the Chooch, which is the most amazing, beautiful steampunk, rusty train engine art car that you will ever see, and plopped down onto the crusty playa, and a little cloud of fine alkaline dust rose up around me. And I started to walk along the side of the Chooch, and my campmates were climbing down the ladder, all going to line up at the line of porta potties down the way. Much to the chagrin of our illustrious engineer, Paul, a lot of our late night playa adventures involve looking for the blue lights that indicate the location of rows of porta potties. Now, in the city, porta potties can actually be a really amazing experience. You can walk in and one will be decorated like a rainforest with little rainforest sounds and twinkle lights. One might look like a lunar landscape. Another might be a discotheque with music playing. One might look totally normal, but when you open the door to exit, there's a red carpet and a line of people cheering you. Unfortunately, out in the deep playa, which is way far out of the city, those are not the kind of surprises you're likely to find. So I was very grateful to be walking away from the blue lights at that moment. So I walked off with my brother, and we approached a huge red art car. It was a sideways laying fire extinguisher with flames billowing out of the hose, called the Red Hot Beverly. And outside of this amazing, huge art car, completely lit up, fire red, was an adorable smiling couple. And they introduced themselves as David and Vix. And my brother had been chatting them up just a few moments before, and he asked where they were from. And they said, "Oh, you wouldn't know it. It's just this little town." He said, "Oh, well, tell me, what is it?" And they said, "Oh, we're from Twainhart." Tom laughed and said, "I went to Twainhart Elementary. I graduated from Twainhart Elementary, and I just lived down the hill." So he ran and grabbed me. And I was really excited to hear this because they were in an art car that was billowing flames. And so they knew someone who could do this. And I told them all about our project that we were trying to work on, and that I was looking for someone to mentor some students. And they looked at each other and simultaneously said, Nigel. And so they connected me with this great guy, super friendly. And there were other Playa miracles that happened that week. And even off the Playa, we held a little sing-along for Ani DeFranco sing-along, and only one person came, and her name was Meredith, and she was a medical person for the kinetic sculpture race that we wanted to go to. David connected us back in Sonora with this really wonderful man named Big Bird, who taught half my class how to weld and creates crazy contraptions and is a friend to this day. And of course, there were parents and grandparents and family members and friends from the community who all rallied to help us raise money and put together this project. But the miracle that I want to close with is more subtle and maybe tinier, but significant. My campmates and I were all at a beautiful art car called the Mayan Warrior. It's famous, and it has lasers that carve up the night sky and rows and rows of poofers blowing out smoke and flame, and it's stunningly beautiful. And we were dancing, and it was just absolutely a perfect moment. We were so happy and connected with the earth underneath us and the stars above us, and a crowd full of amazing, inspiring humans, artists, and everyone coming together to create this beautiful reality. And my cousin called us all over and said, we need to create a mantra. We need something to help us remember this perfect moment and how we feel, and how everything is connected and how everything is okay. And so she called us together, and our heads are together in a circle, and she says, it'll be. And I blurt out, what it'll be what it'll be. And I know that's a cliche. It doesn't seem like a big deal, but in that moment, we all knew what it meant. Like the first person who ever said it knew what it meant, in the way that the serenity prayer means it, right? It'll be what it'll be. You can do what you can do, and you have to let things go. And that little cliche mantra carried us out of 2019 and into 2020. And in March, when my class met for the last time, we made our bike helmet, Viking horned, helmets that we were going to wear for this race. That was our last day of class. We went to Zoom after that. We didn't get to do our Shakespeare play in person. The kinetic sculpture race was canceled last year and this year. And that mantra, it'll be what it'll be, has been what carried me when all of our plans turned to dust. Thank you.
Yeah. Thank you so much. It'll be what it'll be. And our night has been, it'll be what it'll be, with some really amazing storytellers. And I just love the creativity that you've experienced. And I've never got to go to Burning Man. I have friends that have been there, and I've just seen pictures of it. And it's something that I hopefully can do at some point. And the idea of the kinetic sculpture and just the creativity and the thoughtfulness that goes in there, that is such a great education for children. And thank you for being a teacher and being so creative yourself and a storyteller. Well, we are very fortunate in the fact that there is a storyteller that I have told stories with before, that I happen to see in the participant list, and she has agreed to tell a story for us, for one of our storytellers, Betsy Mosier from the South Coast Storytellers Guild, who is ill tonight and couldn't make it. But this storyteller, at the last minute, has agreed to, just through chat, to come on and tell us a story. She's an amazing storyteller. I know she's told with the Contra Costa Storytellers Guild, so maybe she's going to represent them tonight. But please welcome Neshama And she'll give her a little introduction herself, since I don't have all the information on her.
So basically, I'm representing everyone here because this has just been such a fabulous night of stories. I'm just blown away by it. And I've been wanting to get to these genre occasions, but with the weird COVIDness, I had to work on Wednesday nights. And finally, they released me on Wednesday nights. So this is my first genre storytelling. And I have to tell you, this is a little like a Walter Mitty dream. You know, when I was a little girl at Carnegie Hall, and, you know, I thought that maybe an usher would come up and take me by the hand and lead me to the stage and I could dance for everybody. I mean, that's how nuts this is. You know, I'm sitting in my nightgown, which I put on because you'll find out why. And then Ed asked me to do this, and I love to tell stories. And so I was kind of casting around, and all I had to do was put my eyes forward upon my bed, and then I knew the story I wanted to tell. And now I will tell you about my life in and around beds. So when I met my husband, oh God, how many years ago was that? He was a large man, but at that time, this was back in the late 50s, people slept in double beds. You know, there was no such thing as king or queen. And I'm not very large, and he was a great spooner. So we were very cozy together in this double bed. And somehow life gave us the model, which I now still use, which is the bed is in the middle of everything. I mean, it's because our apartment was tiny and, you know, there was just basically room for a bedded table and a couple of chairs. And everything is in reach when you live like that. You know, you just a few steps to the bathroom, to the kitchen, to whatever you need. So that's the way my husband and I lived for all the years that he was alive, from house to house. No matter how many rooms there were around, our bed was always in the middle of everything, pretty much. And it felt so good. Now, he died 7 years ago. I'm not good with chronology. And of course, we had prepared for it. And it was, you know, as good a death as an early death can be. But there I was, a new widow. And I knew I wanted a new bed. You know, actually our old one, the mattress was ancient. You're not supposed to sleep on such old beds. And I knew exactly what kind of bed I wanted. I wanted a sleigh bed, something to kind of travel with in my dreams. And I'm not a shopper, you should know, at all. But I know that sleigh beds don't have wings, and it wouldn't just kind of arrive in the house that I had remodeled. I had remodeled this house because my husband believed in entropy. He said, you know, if you get in there, you're going to regret it. But there I was alone in basically a house that on the San Andreas Fault that would probably fall down at the first earthquake. And I got intimations of that because whenever the trucks would drive on the road, which is the only road into town, I would feel this kind of alluvial plain shake. So I knew that I had to have this old farmhouse remodeled. And indeed, it got very subtly, without permits, ripped apart. And when it got ripped apart, we discovered that it was held up by termites holding hands, because the person who had done some work on it a long time ago forgot to pull out the frames that hold the foundation in place. So the termites were just having such a party. So in any case, I had this remodeled house and I needed a new bed. And I looked at Macy's, places like that, and God, they were expensive and they didn't have soul. And so I trust the universe a lot. And so there I was in town, a town kind of 12 minutes away. I had a little time. I walked into this enormous barnish place full of peculiar furniture. And there, leaning against one of the barn walls, was, yes, it looked like a headboard and a footboard of a sleigh bed. And so I asked the proprietors, I said, do you have the rest of it? And he said, oh, yes, pure mahogany. And so I said, how much is it? And he gave me a figure that absolutely reached the same amount that I had just gotten in an insurance check, because I was futzing a lot with getting reimbursed for insurance for my husband's medical bills. So I figured that it was, as they say, beschert. So I loaded up this front and back and rails and wheels, that was the bed, and took it home and set it up. I had a new mattress by then, but nothing to, put it in. And it was beautiful. And a couple of days later, my that time very young grandchildren came to visit. And if there's a bed in the middle of the room and you're a very young grandchild, what do you want to do? Badung, 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 badung. And it didn't take more than like 4 jumps, and they were not very large children, for the bed to collapse, to splay. No longer a sleigh, it was a wreck. And I was not a happy camper. However, I still had these construction guys, these brilliant construction guys with PhDs. And I said, what do I do with my broken bed? And my friend, who was also my contractor, said, I'll give it sturdy sides and it'll cost this much, which was not a small figure. And so I went back to that emporium and I said, I was so excited to get your bed. It's such a beautiful bed. My grandchildren jumped on the bed and the bed collapsed. I can get it fixed for this amount of money. Will you cut me a check? If you do, everyone will know the story of how you connected me with my bed, and I love it. If you don't, well, small towns. They cut me the check. The bed has its rails. No more wheels. That was a kind of a crazy thought. And I am someone who lives for every night flinging myself into that bed. It makes me so incredibly happy. In one hand, I have the book I'm always reading. In the other hand, I have the bone I'm always chewing. That's what I like to do in bed. I should do confessions. And from that day to this sleigh bed has carried me into dreamland and back. It is solid. It is good. It links my husband, my grandchildren, my contractor, my dreams made visible. And that is the story of my bed. And thank you so much for letting me be part of this wonderful, wonderful group of tellers.
Wow. Yeah. Way to come on, boy. I am going to go down and give my bed a kiss. I mean, wow, it just made me think about how important that bed is. Appreciate it. Really a fun story. Good energy and a great way to end the evening on such a high note. Thank you so much. Okay, so we are done for the evening. We're gonna open up the mics for everybody. So I would get on gallery view and you can see everyone, and we're gonna open up everyone can unmute themselves. And we'll just have conversations. If you have any questions, we'll stay open for another 15 minutes, 20 minutes or so. Anyone has an announcement? I have one announcement. The genre series is continuing again. We're in our new season now. Next month are folk tales, and any story swap group can nominate a teller for that event. And again, you just send it to me. I guess I'll put my email in there, or you can send it to the Storytelling Association of California. But the nominations, you have to be a member of SAC. And this year we are paying all our tellers $50. And they can either take the money or they can donate it to our Jenny Fund, which we are using to go into schools, underserved schools, and set up storytelling programs. We've done this for about 6 months now, and it's been very successful with a group in San Diego. And the genre will just continue. So you can, if you're a story swap leader, or you're a person that wants to tell a story and you're a member of SAC, let your story swap leader know. And the email, if you're members of SAC, you got an email, or you're on my email list about different genres, because we go folk tales in September, spooky stories in October. In November, we just do our celebration, so we don't have a genre. December, we do sacred stories. January are tall tales, then love stories. There's myths and fables, and all, historical, and a lot of really interesting topics. And you can be nominated for one in June if you want. So we can set this up ahead of time. You don't have to wait for the month to do that. Okay, is there anyone else that has an announcement they would like to make about any event that they've got? Or is Rick here to talk about Stories in Living Color? Or somebody that would know about that on September 2nd?
Well, we have a real special program coming up on September 2nd, which is benefiting organizations that are working with incarcerated folks. And it's a Stories in Living Color special event. And you can find out more about it on our website. We hope you can come. It's going to be really interesting.
And the website, I'll type it in, but it's storysac.org, or go to the Storytelling Association of California. But I will put it in the chat room. And also, if any of you wish to donate for this event, you can do that at the website. And now we are paying all of our storytellers $50 for every event they do. We decided to just give them a flat fee and not worry about dividing up the donations. So we're playing, but any donations will just go in to help pay for those events. Okay, anyone? I know, Rocky, you want to talk about your event in more detail?
Well, my event is a live event in Morro Bay, so if anyone feels like driving, we have live storytelling on a beautiful stage, a garden stage in Morro Bay, and it's completely outdoors, so we're 4 blocks from the ocean, so we'll have a lot of good air circulation. And we have a storyteller, wonderful storyteller coming down from San Francisco. And we're just excited to be out. We're like little, what is that, moles sticking our head up from, our silos. We're going to tell one story and then go back under. I don't know what's going to happen with Delta. We have 3 shows planned for August, September, and October, but it may be just this one. So if you're interested in the Reboot Storytelling Reimagined, you can look us up on Facebook. And thank you for this evening.
Okay, go ahead, Marilyn, and then Julie. We'll go Marilyn, then Julie.
Thanks. This has been a delightful evening. Thanks to all of the tellers. In San Diego, we have a live streamed event tomorrow, and that's Thursday at 6:30. And it's what we would ordinarily do at Twisted Horn Mead and Cider Hall, which is pretty exciting if you're there in person. But we are going to be streaming that. You can find a link for that on our website, www.storytellersofsandiego.org, and other programs that we are involved in. You'll be able to find out about them there too. So join us anytime. We would love to have you.
All right, Julie, did you have something? Did you raise your? Oh no. Anyone else have? Marion.
I do. Thank you. So I put in the chat Delta Word Weavers att.net. my next story swap is the second Sunday in September. That would be September 12th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon, California time. And I've arranged Julie Sima, who's from Michigan, nationally known storyteller, has told at national, given workshops all around. Anyway, I have arranged with her and she's going to give us a workshop. So for all of you, it's free. And the fabulous subject we've got is turning memories into treasured tales. So it really would benefit you if you sign up ahead of time, because we have, for those who sign up with me, deltawordweaversatt.net, I have some information to give you ahead of time so you can get the most out of this wonderful workshop by Judy Sima. She's giving it many times and it's very successful and very fun to take. So you take little prompts and you develop them, and they're some of your own treasured tales when you get done with them. So please email Marion at what I put in the chat, and I'll see you all on September 12th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. But do sign up ahead, would help. Thank you.
Go ahead, Andrew.
So the Sacramento Storytellers Guild is having a swap on August 28th. We were going to do an in-person hybrid, but we've decided to just go with a Zoom show instead, given the Delta variant and everything. And Marilyn McPhee, I believe, is going to be a feature teller on that day. So it's at 2 o'clock, and the website is on the the link is on the SAC website if you are interested in going to that. So thank you. It's going to be a great show. John Petrick, who was one of the tellers tonight, is hosting that show.
Last month, the Sacramento Storytellers Guild, we joined forces with the Sacramento Poetry Center, and we did do a live event last month. And we have 2 poets that are telling with us now, along with 5 or 6 of our storytellers. We tried the hybrid because we want to go hybrid. We want to always stay hybrid so we can have people from all over join us. So we experimented with that, and we brought a laptop and we connected that. Originally, we had a little projector that I bought for $108 on Amazon, and where you can project something onto a wall like families do outside with movies for kids. And but they had a television there. So we plugged the laptop into the television and we could zoom it in. And we could see this. We had 2 Zoom people come in and they were able to tell their stories, and people in the audience could watch them on television. And if you didn't have a television, it would just be on a screen or on the wall. So we are going to continue this hybrid thing. And once we really get it worked out, we had a little problem with the Zoom people hearing our tellers, but we figured out the problem.
Yeah.
Andrew figured out the problem. and now we think that's going to be successful. So, and once we get this together, we're going to put down exactly how we do it. And then the SAC board is going to send out a message about how to do a Zoom hybrid in-person event. So I know many Story Swap groups want to do that. They want to, keep going hybrid as well as being in person when that can happen.
Yeah, well, Ramya's all the way in India, I think, right? And she's here today, and she'll be able to be with us every month.
Oh yeah, Ramya, why don't you come on and say something? Tell us who you are.
Hello, good evening. I'm on Thursday morning here. I just went out with my mask. What a wonderful evening it's been there for you. I've been listening. I woke up and I've been listening to such lovely stories, such heartwarming stories. The story of adoption almost made me cry.
Where are you right now? Where do you live?
I live in India. I'm in Bangalore, the southern part of India. And it's Thursday morning, and I'm so happy. And I just hope you continue to do hybrid so I can join.
We
Otherwise, Yes, some of the very few bright sides of the pandemic, I was able to, be a part of something like this, staying so far away in India. So thank you for that.
And Ramya will be one of our storytellers next month with folk tales. Sacramento.
Cool. Great.
Thank you so much.
Anyone else have anything they want to announce? Okay, Nishama.
Okay, so I kind of stumbled in, as one does on Zoom, to an amazing guy, Sean Wellington, who has great stories. And we've been playing around with a form called the Truologue, in which two people take related stories and interweave them. And we did one round of this, and then we're going to do another one on August 29th. That's a Sunday. It's at 7 o'clock Eastern Time. Just look, I put something in the chat, but it's experimental and fascinating, and we have a lot of fun. So that's something I know coming up for me.
Is that considered tandem telling, or?
Is it what? What did you ask?
Is that considered tandem telling? Because we've had tandem tellers.
He doesn't use those words. It grew out of something called Flash, in which he'll just throw out a prompt and then people will start to just riff on it. And then often we discover that some of these flashes were interrelated. So you could call it tandem, but we call it a truologue because it's cute.
Because Linda, weren't you a tandem teller with someone else, or is that BC?
No, with Joni McCammon, the Do Tell Duo. Yep. We haven't worked together for a couple of years, but we enjoy it. Yes.
Can you tell us about that, how you did it?
Well, the first thing you got to do is find stories that you can actually divide up into two parts that make sense. And we have about a half dozen stories that we've mastered. And sometimes we have voices. We also do, one of us will be a narrator if there's a narrator portion, weaving the story together. And it takes a lot of time to get it down. There's one that we do. I think I did it at Marian Ferrante's swap, that we actually do Stone Soup as a ballad. And we share the telling of that with tambourines. It's quite fun. And we sing the whole story.
Okay, anyone else have any announcements?
I just want to say one other thing. Here we are among friends. Rocky Ross pulled on so many heartstrings tonight, and she's gone now. I think she said she had to go walk her dog. Tommy passed away almost 2 years ago, my husband, but today is our anniversary. It'd be 59 years. And our honeymoon was in Morro Bay.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, so she had me going there for quite a while. And one of the things we did, it was actually in the late 1960s, is Tom and I were foster parents for newborn infants relinquished at birth. And we had our first baby, a mixed race child, for 10 and a half months before he was adopted by a mixed race couple. And this was back before Roe versus Wade. There were lots of babies relinquished for adoption. And so it took a while for our little guy to become adopted. And people would say, didn't it hurt? And I would say, if it didn't, we didn't do a good job. Yeah. So she just pulled on with the baby story and Morro Bay and everything. I just need to send her a little note and tell her.
Yeah. That was very touching for me too, because I was adopted at birth. And my parents said, well, I recall, I don't know if this is really true, but that they had to wait 14 days before I could be released from the hospital. Then it was official. Maybe I was released earlier, but that's my recollection.
Well, Santa Clara County, it was 3 days. We got them, I think at 3 days old, yes.
Yeah, well, this was in 1946. I don't know.
Oh, okay.
Seattle, I don't know what the rules were then, but
right.
But I can relate to a story like that. And I've never known my birth mother. She had 2 children, and I always knew about her, but she couldn't take care